Yeah, that's a good point. James Morrow, to you, and objectively, you could argue, many do, that Joe Biden on the numbers has done well as president, that his administration has done well on the economy and other matters. But his performance today, what was your assessment of it just in terms of his performance in that debate versus a coherent Donald Trump? You might not agree with him. You might think he's lying half of the time, as many Democrats would argue. But clearly it was a dominant performance from the former president.
Yeah, look, Trump dominated that debate. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And that was largely because, Joe Biden really vacated the field. There are two sort of tests that you can apply when you're watching a presidential debate. One is to turn the sound off and watch the visual to see who seems stronger. And the other one is to only listen to the audio and not watch the visual and see who seems stronger. I think Trump won absolutely on both of those counts. I think by about minute 12 in that debate, Joe Biden was really starting to lose it. He was starting to wander. It seemed like he was briefed with all of these sorts of set pieces that he would start to go in on, that he was very well trained on, that he'd been drilled on for the last week while he'd been hiding out in Camp David, and then, would just sort of drift off to this or that or the other thing, and the numbers would get mixed up and his train of thought would get mixed up. And, it was an unfortunate performance from him. Barbara mentioned a third sort of element in the room and said that was Kamala Harris. Well, she wasn't in the room there, but you know who was in the building tonight? There's another third element. That's California Governor Gavin Newsom. And Gavin Newsom, I think, will be licking his chops at what he saw tonight, because he is an obvious next step if the Democrats decide to say, well, this guy's not going to work out for us. That debate was a disaster. I know for a fact that donors, big money donors, are already starting to get nervous about what they're seeing. So the question is, do we now see an internal Democrat Party civil war as a result of this?
Let's just recap a little of what James is alluding to. Losing track and, in fact, forgetting where the point he was making at one stage. Let's have a look at Joe Biden.
Been able to do with the with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Now, Annalise, we know the speech issues, and no one is, I'm not referring to that. That's not a criticism. Of course, he's lived with it his entire adult life, his entire life, but that there was such a bad look, such a sad look for people watching on, certainly from the Democratic Party seeing that.
Sad's the word I'm hearing a lot. And I mean, yes, we've heard about the stutter. That is a fact. But the thing that I hear a lot from people as well is that they look back and they see old clips of Joe Biden, and it's not a question of age just in and of itself. We all know people who are older and are still firing on all cylinders, but there is a reality to aging, and I think this is where it's become more evident. There's been a lot of loss of trust from the people around the Biden administration who've been telling us incessantly that he's fitter than ever, better than ever, because simply when we do see these uncontrolled appearances, that's not the case. And even in this, they had all their requests met. There was no live audience for Donald Trump to play off. They were turning off the microphones, and that's I think, become a blessing for Donald Trump, that it forced him to take a back seat and just let Joe Biden talk. And I hear this from a lot of voters as well when we're out on the road. They'll say, look, my parents went through this, my great aunt went through this, I know what I'm looking at, and so you can't keep telling me that this isn't what I'm seeing. And this was the chance for them to change that narrative. Joe Biden's had an entire week to prepare for this, and that's not what we saw tonight.